Welcome back to the Midlife Reinvention podcast. It's your coach, Kavita. And today I'm speaking with Dr. Kathleen Perry, who is a transformational coach, former chiropractor and acupuncturist, and host of the Identity Matters podcast. After decades in natural health care and a series of profound personal losses, Kathleen found herself asking a question so many of us are afraid to sit with. Who am I without the roles I've been playing? What she discovered on the other side of that question is at the heart of our conversation today. So thank you so much for being here, Kathleen.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Just thank you for having me.
Of course. Kathleen, you had a thriving career in natural health care and you built this practice from the ground up. And then you experienced your life kind of handed you some losses that kind of changed everything. So maybe if you could take us back, and the listeners back to that chapter in your life, and what was it like to realize that you weren't going back to the career that you had kind of had defined you, right, for so long?
Very much so. Yes, I had built out a big space. I was new to South Texas and built this functional medicine, acupuncture, women's health clinic, and had a lot invested in that. And the first loss was one that many people, everyone went through, was COVID.
Yes.
And so we were shut down as non-essential healthcare providers for 6 weeks or so. But my husband was already at home in hospice with pulmonary fibrosis. And I came home and I thought, I can figure out how to do this from home. And I did figure out how to do it, but it just wasn't working. And so I decided that I really needed to just kind of set that aside and give myself to him to the end of his life. So he died in July of 2020. And actually, before he died, I called the realtor who had helped me secure the place that I renovated and was renting. And I told him, I'm not going back to the brick and mortar. I'm done with that. I'm done with having overhead and a staff. I don't really know what I'm going to do, but it's not that. And I knew it, just woke up one day and I knew it. And then he kind of said, well, do you realize the financial cost of that? Because you signed a 5-year lease. And I said, it doesn't matter. I can't go back. There was going to be a big financial cost. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that unfolding and unwinding of the career identity that I'd built. Just part of it was my choice, for sure. And part of it was the circumstances of life, just kind of saying, no, not this right now.
Yeah. But you kind of knew, right? You said you just knew. I think you had a grief counselor and he had asked you a question while your husband was still alive. And then I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
With your husband. And he said, who are you going to be when you're no longer Mrs. Mike Perry? You mentioned you lost the identity, or the identity that no longer fit. So what happened then? What happened?
Yes. Well, actually, I was experiencing so much anxiety being at home by myself with my husband not wanting anyone in the house, including any of the hospice nurses. So I said, okay, I'll take on that role. I'll walk you all the way home. And it was very stressful. I'm not the only one who went through something like that, I know. And so I knew that I wanted some support. I needed some support. And I had a patient who'd had a profound loss. And she referred this grief counselor. And I thought, yeah, okay, I'll try that. And so this woman was really special. And when she asked me the question, who will you be when you're no longer Mrs. Mike Perry? And I was kind of taken aback. And I was like, no, I'm just going to be who I always was. And what I realized, maybe not then, was that my identity was much more tied to Dr. Perry. That was so I thought, well, I'm going to miss my husband. I loved him dearly. I enjoyed, and that was the truth, Kavita, that he was the love of my life. But that wasn't the identity that shook me. It really was kind of I don't know, it was all the losses. And by the way, in a 5-year period, I had 5 profound losses. And every one ended up being a portal to taking a look at when roles and identities and people in your life are no longer there. Who are you? What's left? What is? And what's there is what's always been there. But we take ourselves to be the roles we play, the things that have happened to us, the beliefs that we have, the thoughts in our head. I mean, that's the biggest one. Everything that the voice in our head tells us, we think that's us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I didn't understand the question, to be honest with you. And I think the fact that I was like, well, that's not going to be a problem because I'm not identified as a wife, even though I loved being my husband's wife.
Yes, yeah.
But then I found out, oh, yeah. Later on, I was like, oh, I know exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Who you take yourself to be, that's a constructed persona that's not who you are, but it isn't the full truth and the essence of who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love when you said that every loss was a portal to who you are. Every loss, and that who you are has not been lost. It's always been there. But I also want to go back to I want to go back to what you mentioned about that voice in our heads, and I speak about that a lot here, and especially with my clients, who that voice in our heads, it really runs the show often. That inner critic, the perfectionism, or the limiting beliefs sometimes we have, we can't do this, we're not qualified enough or good enough to do the next thing or to be somebody that we're not used to being, right? So you said that you did mention that voice in our head doesn't run the show. So tell us a bit about that, and what do you mean by that, and how does somebody who's listening might change that, and how did you manage those voices, or do you still do that?
So it seems like it's running the show, but it's not. I mean, we give it a lot of our attention, and then sometimes we add fuel to the fire. But those thoughts I don't know where they come from. I've got a lot of theories, but I'm not really sure where they come from. But they're not really us. If you think about it. And I'm so glad to hear that you spend a lot of time talking to your clients about that. I do with my clients as well. Mm-hmm. Because we create our experience by the power of our thinking. Mm-hmm. Our experience is from the inside out. It's not what's happening out there that's making us feel a certain way or do a certain way. It is our interpretation of what's happening, right? Mm-hmm. Our thinking about what's happening, the stories that we tell. Mm-hmm. And so you did ask, it seemed like you asked a couple questions in there, but one thing you said was, what did I do to manage that thinking? And I discovered that it's not possible or necessary to manage it. There's still a voice in my head.
Yes.
I just see through it. I just see, and guess what? There are moments when I'm tired and maybe there are 2 or 3 things closing in on me, and I'll get caught up in that thinking and identified with that for a while. But I catch wise to it a lot faster because it doesn't feel good. And when I get that sense in my body that something's off, then I kind of go, okay, what are you thinking and believing? Oh yeah, that story's running again. So this took me a while to see that. I mean, my first insight was that there's a voice in my head and it's not me. Mm-hmm. But it took me a while to see that I didn't have to do anything about it. I just had to see through it. And that might seem, for somebody listening who hasn't heard this kind of thing before that we're talking about, it might seem like, oh, come on, really? It's that simple? And in a way, it is that simple. The seeing of it, all of a sudden, you come to a realization that it's just a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how that happens, like the way I coach is not formulaic or steps or this is the way I did it or frameworks or protocols or paradigms, because there's an intelligence that is who all of us are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's living us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We're just identified with something else most of the time. And that's where all the suffering comes from.
Mm.
And it's not to say that there aren't challenges and things where we do have to refer to our intellect to make decisions. But I've learned to, and I'm still learning, I expect to be life handing me new lessons till my last breath, right? And just, I don't have it all figured out. But I have just come to live my life trusting that, living as that, letting go of the steering wheel, letting go of the grip of, and it doesn't mean that I don't have some intentions, but I've been playing with a lot lately. What do I actually want?
Mm.
And that seems to kind of cut through a lot of, I don't know if I can say a bad word, but
You can say it.
seems to kind of cut through some of the bullshit. If I just, like, not what should I do? What do I think I should do? What can I do? What can I do? What do I actually want to do?
Yeah.
What's actually alive right now? What's calling me?
Yeah. I think that's really an important question. And I want to get back. I want to get right into that. I want to just go back a little bit to that voice in our heads. And I really agree with you. And then I always say it's not, that voice in the head is not you. It's something that's there that's firstly questioning, like, why is it here? And really often it's as a protective mechanism to protect us from something else, right? And it's not you. So that's very important for anyone listening.
Yes.
I love going back to what you said about the question is, what do I actually want? And that is really a key. And I think a lot of women listening have that. That's such a big question I get every day. I was like, I don't really know what I want. And a lot of that sense of that something is missing in their lives. And even if their life, and like, for example, same with me, that happened to me, everything looks great on paper, right? Everything maybe seem perfect on the outside, but there is something missing. And that question comes up a lot, especially in midlife, in this stage when we're like in transition period in our life. What is that trying to tell us? Like, what is that something missing? What, like, when we hear that in ourselves?
I mean, first of all, I can share what it was like for me. And then, of course, I'd love to hear what it was like for you, too, because it seems to be really common. And since we're probably speaking to midlife women in transition, as circumstances in our life change, that question does seem to come up. Like, okay, because now you have an opening. The children are gone. You're an empty nester. I struggled with that. I've struggled with that question for a long time. Am I really doing? And that, I think it was kind of a sense that there's something missing. And I guess if I were to try to say one thing that would apply to everybody, because everybody's path is going to be very different, it would be just go within. The answer is within. And for me, I found out that it wasn't as big and grandiose as I thought it was. It was ordinary and simple. It was like, just be. But I pretty much do live my life more like, what do I want right now? However, I think maybe for me, and I have to hear for you, I think the struggle was I was still paying attention to that noise, that voice in my head that was saying, you can't, you shouldn't, this is it. Look at all those years you went to school, and when I found out that what I want is just to hang out with my dog today at home, have this conversation, and then my mom just died 4 weeks ago.
So sorry.
And her boyfriend, like really husband, they were only together 5 years, but he's grieving. And so we have dinner every Thursday night because me and her and him had dinner every Thursday night. And that's it. Like, that's what I want today. That's so the things that I want have changed. I think this might be typical for most people at this phase of life. Relationships are more important than love. I want to experience love every day. So I am curious about you trying to figure out what is it you actually want and that feeling of something missing. What is that like for you?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, it was similar to what you mentioned. I was in a career for a long time, right? In a corporate career for 25 years, similar to you. And I had that identity, that role, and it was good when it was good. Honestly, but there was something that around the time I turned 50, things changed, and it was like, is this really what I want? That question, what do I actually want, really came from inside. And that was a trigger. And then we have all these we can have different types of triggers, but that was my trigger. It's like, is this how I want to live my life for the rest of my life? Because I felt that something was missing, and that something was like finding out who I am, what I really wanted, what I was doing, was it aligned with who I wanted to be, what I wanted to contribute in the world. And it had shifted. And you're right. It was when my boys had left the house, and now it's like there was more time for myself, more time to think about those things. And then I realized, wow, I'm not the only one going through this. And that's what led me to this work. And I just think it's fascinating. That question is so important. What do I actually want can be a trigger and a launching pad, I guess, for your next, not even what to do, but who to be, right? It's not so much, it's not so much, oh, I have to do this. Like you were mentioning, if you want to just but if you want to play with your dog today, that's who you want to be today, right? But it's fulfilling something internal that maybe when we were younger, perhaps we didn't have possibly the time or even the understanding that was missing, right? So it's about looking at what your values change, your passions change, your things change in your life as you grow older. And that's what this is all about, is like kind of understanding what as you said before, who is that woman within, and bringing her out.
Well, yes. And to me, now tell me if I say it in any way that's not landing right, but when you discovered that you wanted to go within, then what came from that was wanting to engage in that and help others do that. Like a natural consequence of following the tickles of your soul, or you let yourself do that.
Yeah.
And then you probably weren't up in your head trying to figure out, oh, can I make a business out? Like, it sounds like it had a little bit of an organic.
It was. I didn't know. I didn't know I was going to start a podcast. I didn't know. I knew I wanted to reach as many women as I could with this message, so that it's not the ending. This is the beginning of your life. It is. It's not a crisis. And so then I fell naturally into it. And I think that's one of the messages I often share, is that you don't have to know everything. It's you were saying, you've heard the term follow your bliss, right? So it's like follow what feels right. And then,
which is back to what do you actually want?
That you actually want. And then the things and people and circumstances will follow. And I think that one of the things is that a lot of women who come to me, and probably to you too, as you've come across, they're they're just kind of managing, right? Like they're just kind of pushing through life, and they're anxious, and they're maybe very burnt out, or feeling all these things that, because they feel like maybe they're stuck, right? In where they are, like if it's a career or a relationship or whatever, and they don't feel like there's a way out. And so if somebody's listening who is feeling that way, that feeling stuck in their circumstances, what would you say to them? What are these feelings actually trying to tell us?
That something's out of alignment, I would say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And nothing's wrong with them. In fact, it's something very right going on with them. Mm-hmm. Their system, the mind, the body, the spirit, all of it is sending them a little love note. It probably doesn't feel like a love note, though. Because I've been there multiple times in my life.
Yeah.
Something about my circumstances is what it was in the past. Like, I don't like this. I want to change it, but I don't know how. I feel stuck. Yeah, your system is telling you. So I would say first, don't approach yourself like a self-help project, or that like you're broken or there's something wrong. Love yourself, be patient with yourself, and see if you can just love that stuck part. So a good question is to just say, who am I? Mm-hmm. What am I? Who am I really? In addition to, I think the what do you actually want is one portal that works for some people, but sometimes, like, take away the roles, take away the body, take away the story, your gender, your age, where you live, your set of beliefs, all the things that happen to you in your life. And you may have done this with your clients. I do it a lot in my groups. Who am I? Yeah. Tell your neighbor here. Just explore who you are beneath that, or above that, or beyond that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, the exploration of that is where, because when the identity loosens, right? Because that's what I'm, for the second time, planning to write a book. And the title was going to be, She's Come Undone. But now I'm landing on life before death, because I had 5 losses in 5 years, and I feel more alive than I did 5 years ago before I went through this. Yeah. So you're stuck. Who am I? Yes. And when you tap into and you recognize the magnificence of who you are beneath the story of who you are, that's when the identity starts to unwind, unravel. It's like you're going to stop being a mother and stop being a podcaster. But all of a sudden, you're going to see who and what you really are. Yes. And living from that, living as that, while brushing your teeth and cooking your meals and going to the bathroom, right? All of that's happening within the space of who we really are, what we really, and we're not separate. That's the other thing. So many of our problems, I know for me, I'm an only child. I went through a trauma at age 5. Again, people don't have to know their backstory, but for me, it became clear that at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I'm the lone wolf. It's up to me. I became very self-reliant. And that, when I started seeing through that, like, my life now has changed a lot. I need people. I need help. I'm part of something bigger, whether it's even a person that shows up. But it's interesting when I just kind of internally ask, it's like people and circumstances just like on a silver platter show up for me. Yes.
It's the energy. I love that. That question, who am I really, is something where you kind of begin to you don't have to be in control all the time. You just kind of trust something deeper that shows up when you ask that question, right? Who am I really? And if you really listen to that, then the answer will come. And I think I agree with you in that it's about tapping into that. How do we tap into that knowing and then letting it surface and giving itself permission to to show up.
Yes.
And I mean, you had told me a story. I think you said that you had an idea of your podcast, for example, and it took you, I think you said 4.5 years before you actually launched it. So was it because you were stuck, or was it because it wasn't fully, what shifted for you there?
Yeah. There was a couple things you said, though, that I just wanted to highlight before I answer that question. Because since your listeners are mostly women, and it's in men too, it's everywhere, it's baked into us, is that intuition.
Yeah.
Being led by intuition and trusting that.
Mm-hmm.
And you use the word manage and control. I grapple with that, like how much control do we actually have? How much of life is just happening? But I don't have to know. I can just tell you, though, when I take the hands off the steering wheel, I trust something bigger and deeper than me. My own inner guidance, my wisdom, my intuition, whatever it is, God, source. There's something in it, and the universal intelligence, all the names for it. There's much less managing.
Yes.
That's necessary. So I just think that's huge. You said that. And I just kind of wanted to throw some gasoline on that fire.
No, that is, we don't want to rush through that, but yes.
You said that, and that is big.
Yes.
And we can trust it. I think for women if every single person and woman listening knows that they've had times when their gut feeling or their heart or their intuition told them, and sometimes we doubt it, we question it, and we don't listen. And then later we realize things might have turned out differently if I'd paid attention.
Yeah.
And again, I believe that everything happens because it's supposed to. So you got to learn that lesson a few times, right?
Yeah. Why do we choose not to listen to that?
Maybe that's different for everybody. It seems to me like it could be our culture, our society doesn't honor that.
Yeah.
We're taught, you go to school and you're taught to learn a certain way, be a certain way, accomplish a certain way.
Yes.
Our society has values. I'm 65. I'm an elder now. That wisdom and intuition, I'm going to make sure that it's honored more in my little chunk of the world.
Yeah.
But we don't. We don't. And I don't think it's encouraged. I think it's in many ways kind of conditioned out of us.
Yes.
And so however the doubts come up in our own mind, and like you said, if it's an attempt to protect us, well, maybe you better just make a spreadsheet and pay attention to that and not go when your gut feeling, your intuition is telling you to do the opposite of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary.
Yes.
I do with my coaching. I will, and oftentimes I'll ask my client, how could you create an experiment where you could test that out with something really little? You could test your intuition to see, oh, it is trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't give a prescription, but I might say, do you feel like playing with a little experiment? And so your listeners could right now. How could you set up something where you're facing a small decision and throw out the logic and the intellect? Say, what do I actually want?
Yeah.
What is my heart? What is my gut telling me to do? And just
and do it.
Try it that way. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. See what happens.
Yeah. That's great. That's wonderful. And is that what happened when going back to the podcast?
Back to the podcast.
Is that what happened with?
Well, yeah. So the initial idea, I was in a business mastermind. It was the first mastermind about a year after my husband died. And she opened it up. It was a small group of maybe 7 business women. And I was there going like, I think I want to be a coach, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm just showing up. I just showed up, and it was great to just show up.
Followed your intuition. Yeah.
I did. It wasn't cheap. I made an investment. Yeah. And after 5 months, I was like, I'm no closer to a business. And that was fine. But we opened with kind of I don't remember the exercise, but your wildest dream, what would it be? And so I was like, I like to play pickleball. I like to have a podcast. That author, Tim Galloway, that wrote the book, The Inner Game of Tennis, I want to have a podcast called The Inner Game of Pickleball. And so that was the birth of the idea. And then who knows? I think just circumstances, and it wasn't what emerged 2 months ago when I started this podcast. So I'm glad I waited.
Yes.
Because this was what was being born.
Right.
I think that 4.5 years was an incubation period. And though the other thing that was stopping me was a very strong voice in my head saying, you're not ready. You have the ideas, but you don't articulate them well. And it needs to be perfect. I mean, that was identity for me that still likes to try to hooks in me again.
Yes.
My podcast is messy.
Yeah. It's so funny. It reminds me of, I had a little poster about this orchid that I have growing in my kitchen. And I was looking at it, and I was like, all the buds formed except this one little one that was taking a long time to bloom, right? And then it just kind of reminded me, like, you have the seed, right? And then you have all the conditions underneath the seed, and some buds bloom and others wait. And then it's just about the timing. And I think that was, to me, it's a good analogy, is that you're not going to plant a seed and then like look at it and go, well, how come you're not growing yet? It's about the conditions making of first planting a seed and then having the right conditions for it to grow. And I think that's, and then when the time is right, it will happen. But you have to trust that it will happen. And maybe
such a good,
yes,
perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even see how much that was true until you told me that little story. Yes, that really, really was happening. Because it looked to me like mostly I finally quit, and I did. I let that voice be there, and I said, I'm doing it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing, that if something's important to us and we really want to do it, and that would be the thing, like, I guess I just didn't really want to until I actually really wanted to. And then
yes,
the bloomed and the voice was there, but I just let it be background noise.
Yeah.
And it's still there. Well, I sit down to record episodes. Right. And back to there's no need to manage the voice in our head.
No.
We just see it for what it is. And some days it'll cause a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Quite often. It's always going to result in a feeling in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
yeah,
that's a good check engine light. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Check engine. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, acknowledge it's there and then do it anyway. Right?
I did it. I actually did it.
And what are you doing now, or who are you being now?
I have the podcast.
Yes.
I love, and it's my work. I want it to be a gift. I want to know that if I'm outside walking the dog and I run into somebody and they may not ever coach with me, but I might be able to send them a text message or direct them to 3 episodes on anxiety on my podcast.
What's the name of your podcast?
Identity Matters.
Identity Matters. Perfect.
Yes, that name I labored over that name, and then it came to me. I mean, it was a download.
Just on that, because I love that title. Maybe the person who's listening, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Like, should it mean to her? Identity Matters.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of got the double meaning of identity matters, as in matters topics, right? The matters that we talk about, but identity matters so much because it's everything we were talking about here.
Yeah.
The who we take ourselves to be is when we can see the deeper truth of who we are, it changes everything. Changes everything. We identify as the voice in our head. Mm-hmm. And that's not who we really are. Mm-hmm. So I think the podcast would be great for anyone who's curious about what we've been talking about. what do you mean voice in my head? What do you mean I'm not the roles I'm not entirely who I'm taking myself to be.
Right.
I'm not separate. I'm not this isolated persona that's been constructed, conditioned, acquired. I'm so much more magnificent than that. And that's the message. And so there's a book. I'm in a mastermind right now, my second attempt at a book. Who knows? No pressure. Because actually I signed up for the mastermind. And when we introduced ourselves in the beginning, I said, I'm here because I like the coach. I like this community. I want to write, but I have no intention of writing a book. And they were all like, great, we're happy to have you here, Kathleen. And then literally 48 hours later, I had all 7 chapters and I had the book. Because it was already there.
It was already there.
It was
everything we talked about. Yeah. It was inside you.
Yeah. I like my days to be pretty free.
Mm-hmm.
So cultivating friendships. And that's a big one for me. I don't have children. I don't have siblings. And losing my mom. I lost my husband in 2020, my stepfather who raised me the next year, my biological father the next year. Okay. And I don't discount this, people who don't have animals that are when I put my dog to sleep in the 4th year. And then I just lost my mom. And so friendship, deepening friendship, cultivating new friends that are more aligned with who I'm now taking myself to be. Not that, is it in the Girl Scouts we would say, make new friends, but keep the old one in silver and the other gold. But I have met some amazing people through coaching, through a meditation group, a large meditation group that I'm in. And those are the kind of people that I like. Fewer, deeper. I really enjoy depth. But then I have to just go out there and just hit that darn tennis ball. So I'm working on getting my knee back in shape so I can get back on the court.
Wonderful. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's so great. And it's especially going through all those losses and you're doing what you love to do and listening to your intuition. And as you said, identity matters. So
yeah,
it's been wonderful having this conversation with Kathleen. A lot of wisdom and lived experience. And I'm sure that the listeners have gained a lot. So I really appreciate your time and sharing.
I appreciate you. This conversation has been, it just flowed and it was, I think we found some juiciness in there.
Yes, I think we did.
You're a great person to just sit down and talk to and a great interviewer.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love doing what I do. And so
it shows.
That's why I do it. So, and also to help women who are feeling stuck or feeling like maybe their identity doesn't matter or they don't matter and just to let them know that they do. And so I really appreciate it, and we'll share your links in the show notes.
Thank you.
You take care.
You too.